Thank you for joining me for the Divine Guidance episode for August 2026. My name is Anika Apple. I'm a trusted advisor, spiritual strategist, and every month I come with the word from the Lord to share with us how to discern what's happening in this season. And typically, for those of you who are new to me, typically God works with me in about 12 to 18 months out. So what I share is relevant for the time that is up ahead as well. There is definitely some preparation for right now in what I will share. A couple things I always like to start with. One is that anytime you are hearing a prophetic word, it's really important that one, you are clearing yourself, God, the divine, that you are asking for clarity with if this word is something that you should be hearing from this source, hearing in this moment. That's important. Second is that you take everything that you hear back to God and you're having that conversation that's very simply looks like, I heard what I heard. What part of this, is important for me in my life? And then the third thing that you're doing is asking for the wisdom of how to apply it based on whatever your experience is. So, what's actually happening for you? So, with that said, I want to encourage you to make sure that you're doing this. God gave me a really interesting word to start with on today. And what I can say is there's so many different ways that this particular word might hit or sit with you. And so I want to just encourage you to find yourself in a place where you're really open to allowing God to speak to your heart, to the situations that you have been putting in front of them, to your concerns about the world, the fears, the ideas, the excitement that you might have, recognizing that based on who you are and what you're up to, what's happening in your life, you might be receiving this at a different time. And so I know that you will find the gems and nuggets that are meant for you in this message, and you'll understand the season that you are in, and just encourage you to allow yourself to be open without having any, without being reserved about what you believe is for you. Because for some of you hearing this particular message, even if are receiving it at the end of the month, you will be right on the cusp of what life has been looking like for you and the possibility of what you have been asking and standing in agreement with God to happen in your life. And so what you could very easily do is accept the things that apply to the situation looking like what it does for you today and miss the opportunity to stand in hearing what is possible, the confirmation for the possibilities that you've been creating. That said, let's go ahead and get into the messages. So the first thing that God said to me was the word diversion. And I was like, okay, diversion. That's interesting. There's a lot of different ways that we could go with this, right? And so the first thing that I did was look at all the different ways that the word diversion means something to us, that it relates to us, right? And there's so many different things that a diversion can be. And I encourage you to spend some time with this word a little bit later, maybe journal about what it comes up as for you. But a diversion can be something that takes you off course, right? It can reroute you. And there are many of you that are in a season of being rerouted. Now, the thing about diversions, typically, if you think about driving along and you have a set route that you go on all the time, and all of a sudden the road is blocked, and we tend to look at that as an annoyance. There's some people, though, that look at that and they're like, it's an opportunity for me to see a new route. I can find a new way to go. I didn't even know that, this coffee shop was here, or, this florist was here, or whatever you might find along that new route. You would find that you will benefit a lot in this season by exploring what you haven't explored before. Allow the route changes that happen in your life to be something that speaks to the reminder of the importance of change, being open to possibilities. How often have you found that by doing the same thing you've always been doing, that something new opens for you? It's just rare. What you find is that when you behave in a way that's different, than how you've been in the past, that's when new opportunities, new things are opening for you. That's when you have space to create something that hasn't existed for you before. And so there's something about this route change that instead of looking at it as a thing that gets in the way of you going where it is you want to go and getting there in the way that you're used to, where you could embrace that as an opportunity to experience change in something different. For the last several months, God has been saying over and over again that there are going to be opportunities for people, for their businesses, to really benefit in the challenges that are coming. That how people set their minds on being a part of a solution to the shifts that are happening in the world can set them and their families up for generations. And when you couple that with knowing who you are and what you are positioned to be able to gift into the world, like what is the unique thing that you do that nobody else can do like you? When you take that opportunity and the what it is that you are great at doing, and you put those things together, you have the preparation for it. Imagine what that can be for you. So don't allow the moments where you are being rerouted to be things that you look at as bad, or it as an interruption. Can you embrace it as a new pathway, as an opportunity? Diversions can be beneficial for us if we recognize that we've been doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. The second thing that came up with diversions are that sometimes diversions are created to take your minds off of things. And one of the images that immediately comes to mind is like a diversion being playing in the midst of working, right? Something that gets you in a different kind of mindset. Some of you have been feeling like you're in this season where you keep hitting roadblocks over and over again. You keep feeling like you're stuck. You keep feeling like you've lost your edge to create or be that version of yourself that worked so well in the past. Allow the diversion that's there to be something that opens you up to new creativity. When's the last time you took yourself on a date, just you? When's the last time you traveled out of the country by yourself? When's the last time that you decided, this thing that I have been thinking about, that I've been journaling about 3 or 4 years ago, I tried and it felt like it failed. Maybe it's time for me to dust that thing off again. What are the things that you do as a regular practice that take your mind off the situations that weigh the most on you? Because allowing yourself to do something that takes your mind off of it can actually be the thing that opens up new pathways for the solution on the thing that matters most for you. What tends to happen is that when we're working at the thing, I know this happens for me in my business. I'm focused on the thing. I don't want to do anything else. I want no distraction. But then I can remember in writing my book, at one point, I'm like sitting in front of my computer and it's like an hour has gone past and I've written a paragraph or two. And I got up to go take my dog for a walk. And I came back and I was flying through the pages. Because sometimes we need that diversion. We need the thing that gets us out of like this pressing forward, that allows us to remember that there's a whole world outside of the thing that we are considering to be the problem or the blockage in our lives. And that's really important. The other way that you can apply this is taking your mind off of things, is that there's some things in your life right now that are acting as diversions, and they may not be encouraging you to spend your energy in a good way. I was having a conversation with a friend of mine earlier, and I was talking about how we get wrapped sometimes in comparison, right? And social media is a really great way for that to happen. It's like, oh, I'm thinking about doing XYZ, and then I see 15 people who do it. Now I'm overwhelmed with information about that. We might think that, scrolling is a great diversion. It can be a great source of connection and information, and it can also be the thing that pushes you further down in the rabbit hole. Sometimes what you need to do is set all of that stuff aside and do something else. Don't abandon your self-care in this season. It's important. Don't abandon your spiritual practices. They are important. Don't abandon your mindfulness practices. They're important. Don't abandon your physical practices. They are important. You need to have those things that take you out of what you do every day, that help you to make sure you're refining your mind and your body, and you are attuning to your soul, attending to your soul, so that you can be in the best state of mind, of health, in order to receive that which is coming for you, in order to be strong to navigate that which happens around you. I know you feel the energy of what's happening in the country, in the world, in the environment. You're noticing that the weather patterns are changing. You're noticing that the conversations people are having is shifting. And all of those things are true. There's a lot of stuff happening. I encourage you right now, for those of you who are new, who have not had the opportunity to listen to the prior months, and especially the nuggets last year in the divine guidance, go back and listen to some of those episodes. Start a year ago and look at what's happened in the world, because what God said is so. There's a lot shifting right now. And we need to allow ourselves time away from the worries and the fears and the things that feel heavy, the grief, so that we are constantly reconnecting with ourselves and reminding ourselves that we are strong, reminding ourselves to be courageous, reminding ourselves to place our faith in the places that we know align with who we are. Because we will need that strength to navigate that which is coming up ahead. Okay, so that's diversion as a taking your mind off of things. The next thing about diversion, and you're looking it up in Merriam-Webster, hey, what it talks about is fake attacks. And I'm just going to say, if you're looking at what's happening in the world right now from face value, you're not seeing what's really here. The best thing that I can tell you is that get in alignment with what you consider to be higher than yourself. For me, that is God. But have the real conversation that looks like, God, what's happening in the world right now? What do I need to know about this season? Why do these things occur to me in this way? So that you can really begin to understand what's happening. So much energy and focus is placed on the people who are figureheads, who literally sit out in front so that you have something to focus on while there's a whole thing happening over here in the background. You've got to ask yourself, what's behind this? Why does it make sense that these particular things are showing up in the media as conversation for everyone in particular times? You've got to ask yourself. I understand. You've got to ask yourself, because there are diversions happening left and right. You think that the things that come up and make big news in the media are happening just because? By now you know that there are diversions. By now you know that your attention is directed in a certain way at a certain time, so that you're missing the opportunity to take a stand, to recognize and to discern what's actually happening behind the scenes. And what does that do? What benefit would that be? Well, the population wakes up and realizes it's too late. We're already down a path. And here's the thing. I want to give you an example. Imagine you're on a boat and it gets to be dark. It's night and there's somebody captaining it, and you decide you trust them, at some level, right? And so you're resting, and all of a sudden you wake up and you're in the midst of the storm. What's the thing that you say? Well, we're here now. That's what's happening to us. If we are not paying attention and being in alignment, we're going to wake up in the midst of the thing happening. And some of you, I know, you're like, we already are. You're right. But there's more. There is more. So that diversion can be You pulling yourself out of doing your regular practices, out of seeking God. I always think about seek ye first the kingdom of God and all its righteousness. When I go to God with a pure heart of seeking God and wanting to understand, what is God desire for me to know about this? What is God desiring for me to do about this? What is God trying to show me so that I can be aware? When I sit in that place, I'm opening myself up for the preparation that God needs me to have in order to fulfill my assignment. And you have the same thing. When you wake up and you're in the midst of it, the easy thing to do is to go along with what it is. Now, some of you are going to grab the wheel and you don't know how to steer the boat. But if you sat with God and God says, hey, I want you to understand all things nautical. Your preparation is to be there in the season where that information is needed, that wisdom is ready to be applied, even if it doesn't make sense to you today. You're like, I don't even like boats. Got it. But that doesn't mean that God doesn't have an assignment for you connected with understanding how to navigate in the season to come. Don't allow the diversion to keep you away from what God has been showing you. You know, the beautiful thing about the way God works with us is that God is constantly pointing us to the things that are important, whether it be revealing purpose to you or your identity, whether it be creating opportunities and pathways. More often than not, the thing that you think you are waiting for and that you think you're waiting on God to do, you're actually waiting to come into agreement with it yourself. You're waiting to say, I actually believe I'm worthy of this. I actually believe that I can do this. I actually do want this opportunity, or I do want this relationship, or I do. You're waiting. You're the one. And when you see yourself as responsible for making a decision about having said thing in your life, then things all of a sudden start to shift. But if you sit with God, I likely believe that what you would hear is, I've been waiting on you. And the question is, how much more of your life do you want to live like that? So in this season, be aware of the diversions. Ask God today, how do I apply that word to what's happening in my life? Where do I need to have a diversion? Where do I need to do something else, some fun that takes me out of the doldrums of what's happening? Something that gives me space to be able to create, because I'm not constantly faced with all of the things that I feel frustrated or I'm worried about, or I'm angry about, or disappointed about. Where is this diversion showing up? Where there's a route change for me? What is it that I am supposed to be doing? Is there some change of course that would benefit me or my assignment here? And then this fake attack. Ask for the truth. What are they trying to ensure that I don't see as all of this other shiny object stuff starts to appear in social media? Now, here's the other part of the message that God gave me for you on today. And I want you to really sit with this. So take a deep breath as I say this. If you are unfamiliar with who you are, this is going to be a tumultuous time for you. I can tell you a lot about what is to come through the balance of this year into next year. And none of what I can tell you that I have seen, what God has shown me, is more important than your preparation in this season. So to share all of that would to get you focused on those things outside of yourself when you haven't done the work inside of yourself. You've got to work on you first, the preparation, and then we can talk about the things that are to come so that you feel more prepared with how you use who you are to create the kind of impact and change that we will need for our world. So what does it mean to be unfamiliar with who you are? And why would that be tumultuous for us? Quite frankly, the familiarity with who you are is about your identity and your assignment. I typically talk in the work I do about purpose, but today I'm going to stay on assignment, because there is something that only you have the ability to do, that God created in you for this moment. There is an assignment that you have, and your assignment, it's something that you own, that you're responsible for, but it has a multi-layered impact. There are people waiting for you to fulfill the part of your assignment that connects with theirs. Your assignment does something in the greater puzzle piece of what is happening in the world, right? It's like that one domino that tips, and then it tips the whole rows behind it. And then that goes into all these different areas, right? That's what assignment looks like. And so if you don't understand who you are in this season and what you've been called to do, if you don't understand the impact of who you are, it's going to be a rough season for you. It will be tumultuous. It's going to be difficult for you, because in the midst of all of the things happening, you won't understand who you are. I'm going to give you an example. Imagine that a tornado begins to swirl in your immediate area and you're outside and there's nothing there to protect you. You have two choices. You can be wrapped up in the tornado, and at whatever time it spits you out, you go flying through the air, or you can use who it is that you are to declare that the tornadoes stop. You can use who you are to declare that you are safe. You can use who you are to speak to the thing and tell it to move and change directions. If you know who you are, you will be able to stand in the strength of what God created on the inside of you. And if not, it will be tumultuous. So use that metaphor and apply it to your life. What are the things that you know you don't want to go through, that you know you don't want to experience, but yet you're sitting on what it is that God has already given you and showed you about yourself? I know for me, it is the moments that I hold back on saying the thing that I know needs to be said. And when I remember that somebody on the receiving end of it, be it only one person, makes a different decision in their life, I know they have the ability to change the direction of what's happening in the world. And if I only ever speak to that one person, it is enough. What's your thing like that? That if you're unfamiliar of the power that you have, the impact that you have, if you've forgotten what it is that God created you to do in this world, can you get back to that before the world starts to swirl around you and you lose your footing? Because let me tell you something, we're talking a lot about the stuff that's in the food and in our water, and that's in the beverages and all of these things. We're talking a lot about the technology and the things that are impacting us in terms of like our headphones and all of this stuff. That stuff can read your thoughts. There's all of these things that you've seen about the nanoparticles going into the air. There's all of this stuff that's happening around you. And if you're not clear about who you are, you're going to begin seeing stories that help implant in you that that's who you are. It's already been tested, right? Anytime you see on social media that the algorithm's like, hey, Anika, you're working on this. Because there's 11,000 videos one after another that are reminding me, you're this. And I don't even have to search something. I just have to resonate with a line of what somebody says and comment about it. And before you know it, and if I believe what it is feeding me, I will become that very thing. And how tumultuous would life be if I begin to live into a narrative that somebody else handed me, who does not know my assignment, who is not the one that created me, who is not clear about the power that rests on the inside of me. Anything that can shut down our power, our sovereignty, has the ability to change the trajectory of the world, because each and every one of us were created with purpose so that we would stand in that thing and be an affront to whatever it is that is coming to create harm and havoc in the world, in our families, in our communities. And you don't have to be subjected to it. You get to be who you were created to be, the change agent that God designed. You get to be the person who speaks wisdom. You get to be the person who creates new systems. You get to be the person who brings people together and creates communities of change. You get to be the person who delivers the word that God says through you that needs to go out into the world and travel to reach people all over the place so that they remember who they are. That's mine. It might be yours too. And it's time. There's no reason we have to be in tumult when we can choose to be in the power of who our Creator made us to be. You see, nothing has to happen the way it's planned. If you do your work and you understand how to steer the boat that's going into these rough waters, you'll know how to navigate out of it. And maybe if you're working with God on your discernment, you know, I'm not getting in that boat and I'm not going to allow these other people around me to get in it either. Because even though the waters look calm, I know a storm is coming. You see, there's something about being clear about who you are and tapping into all of that that has the ability to stand as an affront to whatever it is that is coming. Don't relinquish that power ever, ever, ever. The last thing that God said to me that I need to deliver to you is this line, and it says, go out and walk. And I said to God, okay, I get it. I know what that means for me, but like, what does that mean for other people? Go out and walk. And God's instruction was explicit. Sit with me and let me show you what it means for you to go out and walk in your life. I know for me, there's something there around the perspective that I see when I'm outside of my own environment. I know there's something there that is around keeping a commitment for my vessel, my health, my well-being, for my mindset. I know there's something else for me around going out and walking and seeing people, being around my neighbors, being in community with others. I know there's something for me around this environmental shift of how we drive past things and people because we can, as opposed to being immersed in the experience of being with one another. Now, whatever it is that God wants to deliver to you, you will get through doing your work to sit with God and say, what does it mean for me to go out and walk, God? Help me to define that for myself. But it will be important. God was very clear to say it exactly like that to you and to give you the instruction to sit with them. So have the conversation with the divine to understand what it means for your life. Go out and walk, write it in your journal, and list the things underneath it that it means. And then create a plan to do that, because it is not for us to hear the things that God is telling us and then to just do nothing with it. That's how we got to where we are today. The places that we are dissatisfied with, the places where we feel disappointment, the places where we feel like we're behind. It's not that we haven't gotten clarity. It's that we haven't taken action. So this is what I have for you today for August of 2026. I thank you for joining me for the Divine Guidance episode for this month. I'd love to hear what resonates with you. I find that I often have people who reach out and they're like, this is similar to something that God shared with me. So share that in the comments. And if you're not already following me on Instagram, I'm at the Anika Apple, and you can find me at the YouTube at Anika Apple, and on Facebook at Anika Apple. And I just encourage you to make sure that you are spending the time in the disciplines we talked about at the beginning of this episode. It's really important for you to strengthen your resolve of who you are. And I don't know a better way for you to understand your identity but to go to your Creator. However it is that you define it and understand it to be, spend time there. Know who you are. If you're interested in learning ways that you can work with me, the work that I do around identity and purpose, you can find it at my website at anikaapple.com. And of course, there's an archive on YouTube and on all of your favorite audio podcast sites where you can find all of the past episodes of the Divine Guidance. And I definitely encourage you to check them out. You'll be blown away by the things that you hear and what you are already seeing happening in this time of our lives. I wish you peace and blessings, and I will see you next month.